Hey, Bruce Naylor, your boomer consumer. This is a video I thought I would probably never make. For the longest time, I've been resisting the urge to get involved with vinyl records and turntables. And it is claimed today that what is old is now new, and that millions of people are discovering vinyl for the first time, or out of nostalgia going back to vinyl, whatever. It has been probably well over 30 years since the last time I bought a record, a vinyl record, or owned a turntable. But that changed fairly recently when my next door neighbor knocked on my door and said, "Hey, I understand that you're into all this hi-fi stuff, and I've got some components that I'd like to get rid of." And one of them was the Sony PSLX22 turntable, which is a semi-automatic direct drive turntable. And I told myself if I ever got another turntable, there are certain things that I would want. At least semi-automatic and very minimum direct drive. Not anything, I'm not going to get into the whole belt drive versus direct drive. Just my personal preference would be for a direct drive turntable. And this machine had that. It did need a brand new stylus, as the old one was bent completely over like that. And I think I picked one up for around 15 bucks. So, but back in the 80s, which was the last time I bought a record player and records, there was just such a selection to choose from on the consumer side. And then you had, of course, you still had your low-end stuff, and then you had what we'd call mid-fi and then hi-fi, or the high-end gear. And there were many, many brands: JVC, Kenwood, Pioneer, Sansui, Marantz, Onkyo, Radio Shack had their brand. They were everywhere, and they were even the more entry-level stuff, I feel, was really good quality compared to what you're going to find out in the market today for sale in the budget category. And the features on those turntables, it was not difficult to get a fully automatic turntable with a relatively decent cartridge for an affordable price. And you got them home, and they sounded pretty good. They really did. And with just, minimum amount of care, they would last for a very long time. To wit, this turntable, this Sony, was kind of at the lower end of their consumer scale. This was not a high-end turntable. But here we are going on, 40 years later, and it plays like a champ. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it now. So that is a testament to how well built this stuff back was in the 70s and 80s. These companies had building this gear down to an absolute science at that time. But by the late 80s and early 90s, the CDs had become prevalent, and everybody was buying CD players and pitching out turntables and getting rid of their record collection to get into CDs. And I was one of them. I was glad to see them go, to be honest. There wasn't much about the whole turntable experience that I loved. CDs offered relief from things like clicks and pops and cartridges and styluses and the whole cleaning thing and storing these large records. This was nirvana for many of us who really enjoyed we just wanted to play our music. We didn't really want the whole process of owning a turntable. Well, as I said, what is old is new again, and memories fade and life gets in the way. And I have really forgotten what records sound like, or for the most part, what you go through with turntable ownership. So in my mind, you can put people into vinyl and record players into three different camps. Camp number one, I call the collector. The collector is more interested in obtaining albums, searching out, locating records for a collection, whether to display the artwork or just to say they own it. I think something like baseball card collectors. The thrill is in the hunt of getting the record, not so much playing it back where the equipment is being played on. The next group I call the analog people. These are generally very serious people. They want a pure analog source. They don't want anything to do with digital. They want the record. They want it recorded with off of an analog master. They want to play it strictly through an analog system. They really believe that the analog sound is better than digital, such as CD or streaming. And we're not going to have that argument today. To each his own. I just know what sounds good to me. The third camp I call the ritual people. The ritual people, they really enjoy the entire process, everything from painstakingly categorizing their albums and storing the records, to the ritual of cleaning the record, to sweating over the details such as the stylus, the cartridge, the vertical tracking angle, the alignment, the azimuth, the whole thing. They believe that by getting that involved, that you have to pay attention to the music. And they're right, especially in today's modern turntables where most of them are simply belt drive, manually operated record players. And that's a real shame because I happen personally to like automatic turntables. I don't want to have to mess around with a manual turntable, but that is my preference. You might like having a manual turntable. Well, as I said, I changed my mind when a neighbor gave me the chance to get this old turntable. I paid 20 bucks for it, and I invested another $15 in the stylus. Got it set up. I had to put a lot of elbow grease into it. The cover has some scratches, which I got most of them out of there. Cleaned it all up, and I bought some 4 different Beatle records that I will talk about in a different video. I still wasn't impressed with the cartridge, so I upgraded that to the Ortofon Super 10M cartridge. I think it was around 80 bucks. Now, if you want to know why I didn't go with the Ortofon red or blue, the tone arm on this particular table is a low mass tone arm, and those cartridges are just a bit too heavy for it, going off the manufacturer's recommendations. So I did the Ortofon 10, put that on, and I did immediately tell a pronounced and marked difference in the sound that this system put out. Let's talk about sound for just a minute, how I am now grading things. And I want to credit another YouTuber by the name of Techmoan, because I think he's spot on for me as well. Uses a 3-tier system: bad, okay, and good. And I think, you know what, Techmoan, you're absolutely right. What is an example of bad? AM radio, the sound coming from my laptop speakers or my Mac Mini, bad. Okay, FM stereo and car radio, that kind of thing, sounds pretty good. Bluetooth, a lot of Bluetooth speakers, sounds good or okay. Good would be my hi-fi system, streaming music, good speakers, etc. That's good. So bad, okay, and good. And that's the way I'm going to go going forward. So what kind of music am I going to collect? Well, I'm going to mostly go with Beatles, jazz, the Miles Davis, John Coltrane, those kind of records. And that's kind of what I'm going to build a small collection around. I still like my CDs. And honestly, most modern recordings, I think from the 80s going forward, have been recorded digitally, meant to be sold on CD. A lot of reissues on vinyl come from digital masters. Not sure what you're really accomplishing by sound quality by taking from digital to vinyl. I guess you'll get the best sounding vinyl that way. But I think your analog purists would heartily disagree. Now, are they worse than I remember? Different than what I remember. Because pops and clicks and whooshing sounds and vinyl was just a way of life. And you quickly acclimated to it, and you really didn't pay a lot of attention to it. But you get spoiled once the world moved to the digital, to having no noise and I think a little bit better dynamic range, a little deeper bass, a little bit better, more pronounced highs and mid-range. You just kind of get used to it, and so I've gotten away from it. Does vinyl sound worse? It's different. It's a different experience. And although I still prefer the sound from CDs for the most part, there is a certain tone, a certain sound that analog makes that I think a lot of people find pleasant. Some people call it pleasant sounding distortion. And I haven't really went back and gotten albums that were pure analog yet. I think everything I've got right now are remasters from digital sources, but I'm not sure. I got to, research a little bit more. It's different. I still prefer CD over vinyl, but I want to get some classic vinyl albums and some audiophile grade, and then I'll have a better judgment, a better take on it. So is this whole vinyl and record player thing worse than I remember? In certain ways, it is. Let's talk about turntables for just a second. Most of them, like I said, most of them are lacking the, being semi-automatic or fully automatic and affordable and quality. There are some fairly low quality automatic turntables, but when you start talking that $300 to $500 range, they seem to be, or higher, they seem to be pretty much all belt drive, fully manual. And that's just not for me. I want an automatic turntable. I wish there was a better selection of that technology. I was looking at a vintage Denon DP47F, beautiful turntable, very sophisticated. You could not bring that to market today for several $1,000s because of all the sensors and servos and all the technology packed into that turntable. Nope, just not going to happen. The clicks and pops are still there. They're still there. And that's something that you suddenly remember quite quickly. But maybe that's part of the fun of vinyl. Maybe that's what lets you know you're listening to vinyl. So it's not worse than I remember. It's just that memories fade over time. And if you're into vinyl in a big, big way, good. There's nothing wrong with vinyl. And it certainly can be an experience that kind of forces you to sit down and truly listen to the music rather than using it for background music, which that's all I use streaming for, is either two purposes. Background music here at work, I put on smooth jazz throughout the day, or if there's maybe an album that I'm interested in purchasing and owning, I'll give it a listen on a streaming first and make sure that's something I'm going to spend my money on. That is it. This is my video. I'd be anxious to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Bruce Naylor, your Boomer Consumer. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.